In the heart of the savannah, where elephants bathed in dusty rivers and drumbeats echoed under moonlight, there lay the kingdom of Odanji, ruled by a king more proud than wise. King Alawu of Odanji was known not for bravery or generosity, but for his obsession with grandeur, gold, and flattery. His robes sparkled with gemstones while his ears closed to advice. The people of Odanji lived under harsh taxes and heavy burdens, for the king demanded constant tribute to feed his palace's endless hunger for luxury, yet far from the marble halls and silken curtains of the palace. In a humble hut made of mud and straw, lived a quiet farmer named Ijapa. Ijapa tilled the soil with bare hands and spoke to the winds like they were old friends. His yams grew large, his goats fat, and his heart wiser than any scroll in the palace. Though the king had never met Ijapa, his name was whispered through the markets and praised around fires. The farmer who speaks like the griots of old. One year, the rains failed. The sun blazed with fury, and the crops shriveled like old skin. Hunger crept through Odanji like a silent thief. Panicked, the king summoned his ministers. "What shall we do?" he thundered, clutching his golden staff. "Bring me a solution, or I shall have your heads." The ministers trembled like dry leaves in the wind. None had answers. None had courage. But one brave advisor, old and bent, like a walking stick, cleared his throat. "Your Majesty," said the elder, "there is one man who may help, Ijapa the farmer. He has survived more dry seasons than any of us. He speaks with the earth." At first, the king laughed. "A mere farmer? You insult me. I dine on peacocks. I wear silk from across the seas. I do not beg peasants. But hunger is a cruel teacher." Within a fortnight, when even the royal kitchen was boiling bark and leaves, the king gave in. "Summon this Ijapa," he ordered. The royal messengers, dressed in purple robes, rode to the farmer's home. They expected a mansion of wisdom, a house draped in mysticism. They found a mud hut. Inside, Ijapa was calmly roasting a yam on the fire. "Tell your king," he said, not looking up, "that the soil speaks only to those who listen." Confused and a little offended, the messengers carried the reply to King Alawu. The king's face darkened. How dare he send riddles instead of himself? Still, he sent for Ijapa again, this time with a royal decree. "Come to the palace or be punished." Ijapa simply replied, "Let the king come to the land." At this, the king roared with fury. "Me, a king, travel to a farmer? Blasphemy!" But again, hunger won the argument, and so, with an escort of guards and servants, King Alawu journeyed to the humble farm, his gold sandals dusted with red earth. When he arrived, Ijapa stood by his field, hoe in hand, sweat on brow. "Welcome, your Majesty," he said with a bow deeper than any courtier's. The king looked around, disgusted. "This is your domain? Dirt and goats." Ijapa smiled. "Even dirt is a crown if you know its worth." Reluctantly, the king asked, "How do you make the land yield in drought?" Ijapa motioned to the earth. "It is not about forcing. It is about understanding." He knelt and dug with his bare hands. "The soil here stores water beneath the roots. The wind tells me when to plant. The birds sing of coming rain." The king frowned. "I asked for science, not poetry." Ijapa stood. "There is no science greater than patience, observation, and respect for the land." King Alawu returned to his palace, more confused than enlightened. But he ordered his royal gardeners to copy Ijapa's methods. They failed, for they dug without listening, planted without watching, and measured without understanding. The drought continued. Frustrated, the king summoned Ijapa to the palace at last, promising gold, land, and titles. "Be my royal advisor on the earth." Ijapa came but refused the gold. "Give that to the people. I need only tools, time, and truth." The court laughed, but the king nodded solemnly. Ijapa walked the palace fields. He taught farmers to mulch with leaves, to trap moisture, to pray not with lips, but with hands in soil that he taught them to mimic. The ants, who store food in tunnels, and the bees who know when the flowers will bloom before they do, that be why the second moon. Green shoots poked through the brown despair. "A miracle," the people said. But Ijapa said, "Not miracle. Wisdom." The king held a feast, roasted lamb, and wine. "Let it be known," he declared, "that I brought salvation to Odanji." Ijapa said nothing, But whispers ran through the market again. It was the farmer, not the king. It was the soil, not the staff of gold. Pride pricked the king like a thorn under silk. Does he not bow low enough? Does he not praise me loud enough? Jealousy grew like weeds in his heart. Perhaps. Ijapa wants to be king, he muttered to his mirror. One night, the king sent spies to Ijapa's hut. Watch him, he ordered. If he plots, if he schemes, bring me his secrets. But the spies found nothing. Only a man reading the stars, feeding birds, and whispering to seedlings. Still, fear breeds foolishness. The king arrested Ijapa, claiming treason. You dare outshine the sun? You dare be loved more than I. Ijapa was chained in the palace dungeon, dark and damp. The land mourned. The crops stopped growing again. A strange silence fell upon Odanji. Winds refused to blow. Birds vanished. Even the goats bleated with sorrow. The people gathered at the palace gates. Release him, they cried. We are hungry again. Wisdom cannot be locked in chains. King Alawa stood at the balcony, staring at the restless crowd. Are they not my people? How dare they chant another's name beneath my sky? His ministers whispered nervously. Majesty, the fields have died again. The rivers are shrinking. Perhaps the earth mourns. But pride is a stubborn drum. It beats louder in the face of truth. Let them suffer, the king said. Let them remember who holds the crown. Meanwhile, in the darkness of the dungeon, Ijapa sat with closed eyes. He spoke to no one but the silence, feeding his spirit on memory and moonlight. One night, a palace servant snuck down with a calabash of water. Master Ijapa, she whispered, why does the land grieve without you? Ijapa smiled. Because when you chain the hand that nurtures, you also chain the root, the rain, and the rhythm of life. The servant wept. You must be freed. But Ijapa shook his head. Wisdom cannot force itself. Let the king unlearn his pride on his own. Weeks passed. Hunger stalked the kingdom like a ghost. Even the royal kitchens ran out of salt, spices, and meat. Desperation bloomed in his chamber. King Alawa tossed and turned. Dreams tormented him, fields aflame, voices calling, and a crown that turned to thorns. He awoke screaming. Bring me the oracle, he commanded. Let her explain these cursed visions. The oracle came, old and blind, with skin like dried leather and eyes like hollow moons. She spoke only once. The land reflects the heart of its ruler. The king's mouth grew dry. What must I do? He whispered. The oracle replied, free the farmer, or prepare your throne for dust. Reluctantly, with robes dragging like chains, the king descended to the dungeon and opened the door himself. Ijapa stood calmly. So, your majesty, has the earth spoken to you at last? The king nodded, eyes cast low. It speaks in hunger. Ijapa stepped into the light, his shadow long and thin. Then let us teach it to sing again. The people rejoiced at his return. Women ululated. Men beat drums. Children scattered petals at his feet like he was a returning warrior, but Ijapa lifted no hand in triumph. Do not worship me, he said. Worship the truth. And the truth is, we rise and fall with the earth. That season, Ijapa taught again. But this time, he taught not only farmers, but the king himself. He handed the king a hoe. Dig, he said. Let your hands learn what your crown has forgotten. At first, the king groaned, his fingers soft from years of luxury. But day by day, his back bent lower, his hands calloused, and something ancient awakened in him. Under Ijapa's guidance, he learned how to plant cassava in staggered rows, how to preserve water using stone channels, how to compost with ash and husks. The land responded. Slowly, shoots returned. The sun grew kinder. The wind carried scent of growth again. One evening, as they rested under a baobab tree, King Alawu turned to Ijapa and said, Why did you forgive me? Ijapa replied, Because a farmer cannot afford to hate the rain, even if it comes late. Touched by these words, the king began to change. He reduced taxes. He opened granaries to the poor. He walked among his people without guards. Ijapa refused a palace seat, but became a daily guest at council meetings. A wise king, he said, listens to voices outside his court. The people noticed. They smiled more. They danced longer. Songs returned to the wind, and drums to the night. But peace never lasts without testing. One year, a neighboring kingdom grew jealous of Odanji's renewed wealth. King Bacha of Nduku sent a message: "Surrender your harvest or face our spears." His army camped at the border. The court trembled. The general spoke of war. But the king turned to Ijapa. "What does the farmer say?" Ijapa thought deeply. "Send them gifts, not of gold, but of wisdom." So the king sent baskets of fresh food, tools for farming, and scrolls teaching the soil-saving techniques Ijapa had shared. Confused, King Bacha summoned his advisors. "What is this? A trap?" But they opened the scrolls and read wisdom there. Own land needed. Impressed and humbled, Bacha invited King Alawu to a feast instead of a fight. "Teach us what your people know." And so, instead of bloodshed, there was brotherhood. Odanji became not a fortress of pride, but a beacon of learning. Years passed. Ijapa grew older, slower, quieter. But his wisdom echoed in every field, every granary, every smiling child point. One day, the king came to his farm alone. "Ijapa,"